Hello everyone, welcome back to another Farm Fact Friday. A rainy spring week we've had this week, but today I want to talk about how to wash farm fresh eggs. I know there are people out there that have backyard chickens, or maybe you have a chicken coop with a lot more chickens, but I know it's kind of a popular trend, and I kind of learned a lot when I was doing my research about eggs and chickens and how to properly clean farm fresh eggs. Now, this is for home use. The information in here is related to, eggs that are grown, raised at the farm, and not related to commercial eggs that you buy in the store. So keep that in mind as I talk about some of these things. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about the egg itself and what happens when the egg is laid. So we all know that an egg has a shell, and the shell is solid. It's made of calcium carbonate crystals, and if you look at the microscopic level, the egg actually has a porous surface, and that means that things can get into the egg. Can be kind of gross. So how we handle the egg after it's laid is very important. Now, one very cool thing about what the chicken does to the egg is right before it's laid, the chicken actually puts a protective cover over it, and that prevents things like bacteria and moisture and gases from getting into the egg, because it's porous and things can get inside. So this protective cover is called a bloom, and the bloom also gives the egg most of its color, which is pretty cool. If the bloom stays intact, the egg is actually fresher longer, and you can actually store the eggs on your counter if that bloom is intact. Pretty cool. And that's how some countries, that's how they store their eggs, is on the counter. Now for us, we're probably like, oh no way, my eggs have to go in the refrigerator, and that's fine, because there is concern about salmonella, and that can be very dangerous as well. Salmonella comes from fecal contamination, so when a chicken lays an egg, depends on where it lays that egg and what happens when it lays the egg. So coop management is very important, making sure that it's a cleanly place for eggs to be laid, and having roosting boxes would be helpful. But if they're free range chickens, that's a different story, but things still happen. And if there is any dirty material, chicken poop, on the egg, that's concerning, and of course, salmonella is of concern. But truthfully, some countries do store their eggs on the counter because that bloom is very protective of the egg. Okay, so now that we know a couple important things about the egg itself and what happens when it's laid, that chicken putting that protective bloom on it, let's talk about washing. The temperature of the water is actually very important. If you use cold water to wash an egg, it serves as a vacuum, meaning the egg actually pulls in that water and whatever else comes with it. Yikes. So don't use cold water. If there is any chicken poop on the egg, it's best just to take an abrasive sponge and to basically rub it off instead of soaking it in water to make it maybe softer, and we'll talk about that next. So we want to make sure that if we do wash the egg, that we do it correctly. So warm water is the first thing. If you choose to leave the bloom intact, then the egg just needs rinsed and washed right before you use it, and then you use it immediately. Just wash it quickly and then use it how you wish. Now the things of what not to do. Do not soak your egg in water or eggs. So if you've collected a lot of eggs, do not just let them sit in water, because now that we know more about the egg, we know that that protective bloom is coming off, and then we know that since the bloom is not there, now all that dirty water is coming into the egg. So that's enough reason not to let your eggs sit in the water. Also, don't use soap or bleach. Those aren't necessary, and because of the porous shell that it is, that soap and that bleach will come into the egg as well, and we don't need to consume those things. Finally, if you do, rinse it off for storage, make sure that the egg is completely dry, and then you put it into your carton, and then it's ready to be refrigerated. So best to store eggs like this in the refrigerator or in a plastic reusable type of container, just to make sure that they don't roll around and get broken. So I found some of these facts about eggs very fascinating, and it makes sense why you can do certain things the way that you do. If you choose to buy eggs off of someone locally who just raises chickens for fun, it may be interesting to find out how they handle the eggs after they collect them. Is the bloom still intact? Have they rinsed them off and dried them and put them into to packaging so that you can take them home and put them into refrigeration, because that protective bloom is already gone. So just some things to think about as you are consuming eggs, or thinking about eggs. And as mentioned earlier, commercial eggs that you get at the store, they do not have that protective layer anymore, so do not let them sit out on your counter. They certainly have that bloom removed, and since it's porous, certain things can get into the egg as well. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a wonderful weekend. Maybe it will involve some eggs in the morning, and we'll check you back next week for another Farm Fact Friday. Take care.